It starts the moment your alarm goes off. You're barely awake and your phone is already lighting up. Slack messages, unread emails, a calendar invite for a 9 a.m. meeting that definitely wasn't there yesterday. You drag yourself into the shower, mentally preparing for a to-do list that grows faster than you can check things off. You rehearse conversations you might have, outcomes you can't predict, and problems you haven't even seen yet. And you haven't even had coffee. Welcome to modern corporate life. It's fast, uncertain, relentless. For most people over 30 working in this environment, anxiety feels less like a feeling and more like the default state of being. But what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if the real problem isn't the chaos around you, but how you relate to that chaos? This is where the ancient philosophy of Stoicism quietly steps in. Not as a cold, emotionless ideology, but as a practical toolkit for people trying to stay sane in a world that won't slow down. While you stress over meetings, metrics, and missed deadlines, Marcus Aurelius was governing a collapsing Roman Empire during a deadly plague. Epictetus was born into slavery and walked with a crippled leg for most of his life. Seneca, one of Rome's most influential thinkers, was forced to take his own life after being accused of conspiring against a paranoid emperor. These men were not strangers to pressure, and yet they were calm, focused, and composed. What did they know that we don't? Marcus Aurelius left behind a line that might just hold the key. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It sounds poetic, almost too simple, but it's also a razor-sharp diagnosis of the very thing that's eating you alive at work. In the workplace, we are constantly chasing the illusion of control. We try to control how clients behave, how team members think, how leadership perceives us, and how fast we can climb the ladder. We obsess over outcomes we can't fully influence, and we interpret every setback as a personal failure. But the Stoics would say we're aiming at the wrong target. True control isn't about changing the world around you, it's about governing the world within you. This is why modern professionals are constantly anxious. It's not just because the workload is heavy or the expectations are high. It's because we're mentally and emotionally invested in things we cannot command. When your sense of peace depends on external results, your peace is never safe. The brain, wired for survival, interprets that loss of control as a threat. Your nervous system stays in fight or flight. Your heart rate stays elevated. Your sleep becomes shallow. You become reactive, impatient, and distracted. All because you're trying to steer a ship that was never yours to steer. The Stoics knew this all too well. Epictetus, despite being a slave for most of his early life, taught that freedom wasn't about political status, it was about inner sovereignty. He said that some things are up to us and some are not. The sooner you learn the difference, the lighter your life becomes, the more focused your energy becomes, the more resilient your spirit becomes. This is not about becoming passive or checked out. Stoicism is not an excuse to stop caring. On the contrary, it's about caring deeply, just not wastefully. It's about aiming your energy with precision. For example, let's say your company announces restructuring. No one knows who's getting laid off. Whispers echo through the break room. People begin panic updating their resumes. You can feel the tension in the air. What do? The average employee freaks out, complains to coworkers, loses sleep, or begins catastrophizing. But the Stoic doesn't waste time on speculation. They acknowledge the risk, prepare for the worst, and remain grounded in the present. They keep doing good work, they sharpen their skills, and they act with dignity regardless of outcome. Because they know the outcome is never fully theirs to command, but their conduct is. That is the quiet superpower Stoicism offers, the ability to stay still in a storm. Not frozen, not numb, just centered. If you're 30 or older, working in a fast-paced corporate job, you've likely reached a point where your ambition is running into limits. You're not a new game anymore. You've seen how promotions don't always go to the most competent. You've seen how hard work sometimes goes unnoticed. You've had your share of frustrations, maybe even regrets. Deep down, you might be wondering how you keep going without burning out. The answer, if you're willing to consider it, might be a shift in orientation. Instead of focusing so much on results, you focus on process. Instead of chasing validation, you root yourself in values. Instead of trying to control others, you master yourself. That's Stoicism, not a life hack, but a worldview that is shockingly well-suited to the chaos of modern work. This doesn't mean you stop caring about goals. It means you detach from the illusion that your worth depends on reaching them. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you respond to disrespect with poise instead of panic. It doesn't mean you don't feel pressure. It means you don't let pressure make you lose your character. In a world obsessed with speed and results, Stoicism teaches presence. In a world addicted to control, Stoicism teaches surrender. Strategic and courageous surrender to what's beyond your influence so you can pour your full attention into what is within your reach. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to control everything, you often perform better because you're not distracted by fear. You're not wasting mental bandwidth on resentment or worry. You're not emotionally fused with things that don't belong to you. You're focused, you're calm, you're steady, and people notice. They may not call it Stoicism, but they'll feel it. You can be that person in the room, the one who doesn't overreact, the one who isn't shaken by office politics or last-minute changes, the one who carries a quiet kind of strength. All it takes is remembering this. You are not responsible for everything, but you are responsible for yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your choices. The world will do what it does. Projects will fail. Bosses will micromanage. Deadlines will move. But you can remain constant. That's not detachment. That's discipline. That's not giving up. That's waking up. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
In the middle of all your workplace stress, with tight deadlines, last-minute revisions, and unpredictable coworkers, there's one question you probably never stop to ask yourself. What exactly do I control here? Not what you're responsible for, not what you're affected by, but what do you actually, fully, and truly control? It's a rare question, but to the Stoics, it was the starting point of all peace. Epictetus, a man who lived his early life as a Roman slave, gave us the answer centuries ago. His words are simple and almost disarming. Some things are up to us, and some are not. That is the core of Stoicism, a clear line that cuts through the noise of life, dividing the world into two parts, what is yours and what is not. This idea might sound obvious at first, but in practice, it changes everything, especially in the modern workplace, where roles overlap, expectations shift constantly, and pressure builds on outcomes no one can fully guarantee. You may be in charge of a project, but can you control whether the client approves it? You may work hard, but can you control whether your boss notices? You may apply for a promotion, but can you control what's said about you in closed-door meetings? The honest answer is no. And that's where suffering begins. Not in the task itself, but in the false belief that you should be able to control what you never could. The Stoics understood this very clearly. If you do not define your own boundaries of control, the world will do it for you. And when it does, it will usually demand more than any human can give. So what do you actually control? Your judgments, your choices, your intentions, your actions, your attitude. That's the full list. Not the weather, not the economy, not your coworkers, not how people interpret your words, not your company's long-term decisions. Just you. That's the clear truth of Stoicism. It doesn't soothe you with illusion. It gives you freedom through honesty. In a corporate environment, this idea can feel uncomfortable. You are trained to take ownership, influence results, drive performance, and stay accountable. All of those are good qualities, but only when you also understand where your responsibility ends. When you don't, something breaks. You begin to suffer in silence. You internalize failure that was never your fault. You over-identify with outcomes you never had full power to direct. You push yourself harder, thinking you are falling behind, when in reality, you are trying to hold up a ceiling that was never yours to hold. This is the emotional trap that Stoicism helps you escape. It does not make you passive. It makes you accurate. Imagine yourself as an archer. Your job is to aim your arrow with skill and focus. You can train your posture, study your technique, keep your hands steady, and release with intention. All of that is in your control. But once the arrow leaves your bow, the outcome is no longer up to you. The wind may shift. The target may move. The arrow may still miss. If you did your part with clarity and care, then the result is not a reflection of your worth. The Stoic does not judge success by whether the arrow hits the target. Success is measured by how well the archer aimed and acted. That perspective can change how you work. You stop obsessing over how others respond. You stop tying your value to results. You start acting from purpose instead of fear. This is how you become steady. You listen to feedback without taking it personally. You handle uncertainty with a head level. You plan carefully, but you don't panic when things change. You still care deeply, but you don't let external outcomes decide your internal state. None of this means you stop feeling emotions. The Stoics weren't stone-faced machines. They simply practiced emotional discipline. They knew most suffering came from misunderstanding what belongs to you and what doesn't. Epictetus called it slavery of the mind, when your peace depends on things beyond your control. His message was simple. You are only free when you stop trying to command what is not yours. Picture a common modern scenario. You spend days preparing a proposal. You stay late, polish every slide, and deliver it with clarity. But the client rejects it. Your boss seems disappointed. You walk out of the meeting questioning everything. Without Stoicism, you spiral. With Stoicism, you pause. You ask the only question that matters. Did I do what was within my power? If the answer is yes, then you move forward, not because it didn't matter, but because your worth is not defined by outcomes beyond your reach. That is not apathy. That is maturity. That is drawing a clean line between your effort and the world's reaction. Ironically, the less you try to control what you can't, the more effective you become. When you detach from results, your attention sharpens. You stop overthinking. You stop forcing. You do the work and let go of the rest. This is why Stoic leaders were often the strongest in history. Marcus Aurelius led an empire under threat, yet returned each night to his journal, reminding himself not to expect the world to bend, but to meet it with reason and character. You don't have to be an emperor to do the same. You may not control how others treat you, but you control how you respond. You may not control who gets promoted, but you control the standard you hold yourself to. You may not control the timing of your success, but you control your discipline, your grace, and your clarity. When life gets chaotic, your circle of control becomes your anchor. It is not large, but it is solid. You stop worrying about appearances. You stop reacting to every shift. You act with intention. You speak with calm. You accept what comes. This is not just a mindset. It is a way of living. The Stoics called it living in agreement with nature. That means accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It means directing your will toward what is possible, not wasting it on what is not. It means choosing excellence, not attachment. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need every plan to succeed. You just need to do your part with integrity. You can breathe, knowing that is enough. Freedom is not getting everything right. It's knowing what is yours to carry and putting down the rest. That is Stoicism at work. That is the foundation of inner peace.
You walk into work and immediately sense the tension. A manager snaps at someone. An email criticizes your performance. A teammate takes credit for your idea. It happens fast. You feel your chest tighten, your fists clench, your mind races. You want to react, defend yourself, maybe fire back. But what if you didn't? What if you paused? What if you responded with clarity instead of reacting with emotion? That is the heart of Stoic emotional resilience. It is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about mastering your response. It is about reclaiming your power in a world that constantly tries to pull it away. The Stoics knew something we often forget. Most of our pain does not come from what happens. It comes from our interpretation of what happens. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves about events and the judgments we place on others. Seneca once wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The angry email is one thing, but the loop of worry, insult, and revenge we create in our mind after reading it, that's where real suffering begins. Emotional resilience is the ability to stop that loop. It is the ability to pause before the spiral, to ask, what is really happening here? What part of this belongs to me? What part is just noise? You are not a slave to your first impulse. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your frustration. You are the one who watches those emotions arise, and with practice, you can choose a better response. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced betrayal, war, plague, and personal loss. Yet he wrote to himself, "When you wake in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they do not know good from evil.'" He did not say avoid them. He did not say punish them. He said accept them, prepare for them, and respond with reason. That is emotional resilience. It begins not with denial, but with awareness. You anticipate challenges. You accept that people will act from ignorance, fear, or ego. And you decide, before it even happens, how you will show up. In the modern workplace, this is a superpower. Imagine receiving criticism in a meeting, and instead of shutting down or lashing out, you take a breath and say, "Thank you, I'll reflect on that." Imagine being interrupted, and instead of feeling dismissed, you calmly say, "I'd like to finish my thought." Imagine hearing gossip about yourself, and instead of confronting the person in anger, you quietly choose not to participate. You do not shrink, you do not submit, you remain composed. You choose clarity over chaos. That is strength. The Stoics taught that no one can make you angry without your consent. That sounds hard to accept, but think about it. You get cut off in traffic and you feel rage, but the car is just a car. The act is just a moment. The anger comes from your interpretation, your belief that you were disrespected, that the world is unfair, that this should not happen to you. And that belief is a choice. You can feel the emotion rise without becoming it. That does not mean you are numb. Stoicism is not apathy. It is engagement with discipline. It is the fire that does not spread, but purifies. It is the feeling of heat of emotion and using it to strengthen your character instead of burning others. You do this by creating space. Between stimulus and response, there is a moment. And that moment is your power to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to choose. This pause can be trained. It begins with self-awareness. Throughout your day, start noticing your emotional triggers, the tone of voice that upsets you, the types of feedback that make you defensive, the patterns of overthinking that derail your peace. Don't judge them, just observe. Learn their shape, their timing, their story. Then start practicing the pause. When you feel tension rise, say to yourself, "This is a test. This is a chance to practice. This is not a threat to my worth. This is a wave, and I am the shore." You will not be perfect. That's not the goal. You will slip. You will react, but you will catch it faster. You will repair more quickly. You will choose more wisely the next time. This is how emotional resilience is built, not through grand gestures, but through small moments of courage. The moment you bite your tongue. The moment you ask a question instead of making an accusation. The moment you offer grace when you could have held a grudge. You start to see emotions not as enemies, but as messengers. Anger shows where your boundaries are. Fear shows what you care about. Envy shows where you feel lacking. These signals are useful, but you are not ruled by them. You listen, learn, and respond with reason. Stoicism teaches you that your internal state is your responsibility, not your manager's, not your coworkers, not the market's, yours. That is liberating and terrifying, but mostly it is empowering. When you practice this, people notice. They see you stay calm under pressure. They see you resolve conflict without escalation. They trust you with hard conversations. You become the one others look to when things get tense. But most importantly, you start to respect yourself more, not because you never feel, but because you know how to respond. Because you act with integrity, not impulse. Because you meet chaos with clarity. In a world that thrives on outrage, calm is radical. In a culture of reaction, restraint is rare. In an office full of noise, silence can speak the loudest. That is the Stoic path. That is the resilience forged not in denial, but in discipline. You feel the storm, but you are not the storm. You meet the world's fire, and instead of spreading it, you become the steady flame. That is who you are training to be. And that begins today.
You wake up, shower, dress, commute, sit at your desk, answer emails, attend meetings, complete tasks, log out, commute home. Repeat. It is a cycle millions live every day. But one morning, something shifts. You ask yourself, is this it? Is this all I'm meant for? Another spreadsheet, another target, another quarter. The paycheck arrives. The title sounds good. The benefits are decent. But something inside feels hollow. You feel busy, but not alive. Productive, but not purposeful. This is where Stoicism offers a deeper path. Because the Stoics never said that work itself brings meaning. They said that how you work and why you work matters far more than your job title or the numbers in your account. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. He ruled over millions. Yet in his personal writings, he spoke to himself like a humble laborer. He reminded himself to wake up with purpose, to approach each task with dignity, to serve the common good. He never said he worked for status or praise. He said he worked to fulfill his role in nature. Your job may not be glamorous. You might not be changing the world with every email. But Stoicism says that meaning is not found in external rewards. It is found in internal alignment, in showing up each day with integrity, in doing what is in front of you with excellence, in serving something greater than your ego. You could be a janitor, a CEO, a teacher, a coder, a nurse, a delivery driver. The titles change, the essence does not. You are here to do your work well, to contribute, to leave your environment better than you found it. Seneca wrote that we should not regard a work as petty if it is performed with a great spirit. That means that even routine tasks can become acts of character. Even the smallest jobs, done with presence and purpose, carry weight. Think about it. When you give your best in a thankless task, you are not just doing the job. You are training your mind. You are saying, I control how I show up. Not the circumstances, not the reward. Me. This is where meaning begins. But what if your job feels empty, no matter how you frame it? What if the work you do goes against your values? What if every day feels like a betrayal of who you are? Then the Stoics would tell you to examine your choices. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Sometimes finding meaning means risking disapproval. It means walking away from comfort. It means choosing a path that feels aligned, not admired. You may not be able to quit your job today. You may have responsibilities, debts, a family to support. That is real. Stoicism does not tell you to abandon your duties. It tells you to face your reality with eyes wide open. But it also tells you to ask, what part of this is within my control? Can you reframe your perspective? Can you find small moments of purpose in a thankless role? Can you set a longer plan to transition toward work that feels more meaningful? Meaning is not a light switch. It is a direction. And you can choose that direction one small decision at a time. Maybe it is mentoring a colleague who is struggling. Maybe it is treating customers with kindness even when they are rude. Maybe it is creating something on the side that lights you up. Maybe it is simply being the most reliable person on your team. Meaning is not always flashy. It is often quiet. It hides in routine. It reveals itself through consistency. Stoicism also reminds us that no job, no matter how perfect, can give you lasting fulfillment on its own. Because meaning does not come from external things. It comes from living in harmony with your values. So ask yourself, what do I stand for? Do I value honesty? Then I should speak the truth at work even when it is hard. Do I value growth? Then I should seek challenges instead of hiding from them. Do I value service? Then I should look for ways to help others, not just myself. This is how work becomes more than a paycheck. It becomes a field for character. The Stoics believed that we are all part of a greater whole, that each person has a role to play in the larger body of society. Like organs in a body, each doing its part to sustain the system. You may not see the direct impact of your labor, but if you do your work well, with care and conscience, you strengthen the whole. You become part of something meaningful. You also find peace, because when your actions match your principles, you stop feeling torn inside. You stop needing praise or validation to feel worthy. You know you are living well even if no one else notices. This is freedom. You are no longer chasing titles to feel important. You are no longer depending on raises to feel valuable. You are no longer looking to your job to define your identity. You bring your identity to your job. That identity is grounded, principled, clear. It doesn't waver with office politics. It doesn't crumble in setbacks. It is steady, stoic. And yes, there may still be days when you feel lost or burned out. That's part of being human. The Stoics felt it too. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about his exhaustion, his doubts, his pain. But he always returned to one thing: duty. Not as a burden, but as a choice. He said, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, remind yourself that your nature is to work with others, to serve, to do what is right, to be human." That is what meaning looks like. Not a perfect job, but a meaningful approach to your work, whatever it may be. So the next time you sit at your desk and wonder what the point is, remember this: the point is to be excellent, to be useful, to be honest, to be kind. That is meaning. And no one can take that from you. Not your boss, not your title, not the market. Meaning is yours to create, every day, in every task, through every choice.
You try your best. You stay late. You give everything you have, but the promotion goes to someone else. The client walks away, the project falls through, or worse, you are let go. After all that effort, you are left with nothing but frustration. The question burns inside you: what was the point? This is the moment where Stoicism doesn't just whisper advice, it becomes a lifeline. The Stoics understood what it means to care deeply, to strive, to labor, and yet to release attachment to the outcome. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is clarity. It means doing your duty fully while accepting that the results are never entirely in your hands. Epictetus said it plainly: some things are up to us, some things are not. That simple truth becomes powerful when you apply it to your work, your ambitions, and your personal goals. You may control how hard you prepare, but not whether the client says yes. You may control the honesty of your pitch, but not the market. You may show up every day and give your best, but others may still misunderstand you, ignore you, or reject you. The Stoic path does not demand that you stop caring. It teaches you how to care wisely. Imagine planting a garden. You prepare the soil, you water the seeds, you remove the weeds, you do everything right. But then it rains too hard, or the sun is too hot, or the insects come. You cannot control the rain, or the sun, or the bugs. What you control is the effort, the care, the patience. This is the Stoic gardener. And this is you at work, in life, in every situation where you try hard and still lose. You let go not because you do not care, but because you understand the nature of the world. The Stoics believed the universe was governed by logos, a rational order that you cannot always see. Things happen, not always fairly, not always kindly, but always as they must. You can fight reality, or you can work with it. Detachment allows you to keep going without bitterness, to try again without resentment, to pursue excellence without addiction to the outcome. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we must learn to accept success and failure with equal calm. He did not say you should stop setting goals. He said you must not tie your peace to whether those goals are met. Think of an archer. She trains, she studies the wind, she practices her aim. When she releases the arrow, her job is done. She cannot control the exact path it takes once it leaves her hand. The wind may shift, the target may move, the result is not her concern. The effort is. In modern life, detachment is your shield against disappointment, against burnout, against ego. If you link your value to outcomes, you will always feel fragile. You will rise and fall with every win or loss. But if you link your value to your principles, you remain steady. You say, I did what was right. I showed up with integrity. That is success. This doesn't mean you stop caring about results. You want your work to succeed. You want to win the deal, get the promotion, earn the recognition. That's human. But Stoicism invites you to want these things lightly, to prefer them, not depend on them. That difference changes everything. If you are passed over, you do not crumble. You reflect. You adjust. You continue. If you are praised, you do not inflate. You stay grounded. You remember your work speaks louder than compliments. The Stoics also warned often about chasing reputation. They said, do not let your peace hang on the judgment of others. Their praise is fleeting. Their criticism is often uninformed. What matters is your inner scorecard. Do you respect the way you handled the challenge? Were you honest, disciplined, fair? This internal compass is what gives you power. Because when you detach from needing to win, you paradoxically become more free to excel. You are not distracted by fear or vanity. You are focused on the task itself. You are in flow. This mindset also helps when facing uncertainty. Maybe your company is downsizing. Maybe your industry is changing. Maybe you fear being left behind. The Stoics would ask, what can you control here? You can adapt, you can learn, you can build new skills, you can manage your response. Fear thrives when you grasp for control over things you never had. Detachment calms fear. It says, I will prepare for what I can and accept what I must. At its core, detachment is trust. Not blind optimism, but a deep trust that you can endure, adjust, and thrive regardless of what happens. That your peace is not held hostage by a title, a number, or a decision someone else makes. This is not just a mental trick. It is a daily practice. You remind yourself each morning, I will do my part. I will face what comes. I will not let success make me arrogant. I will not let failure break my spirit. You speak this to yourself before the presentation, before the interview, before the hard conversation, and again afterward. The Stoics even practiced negative visualization. They imagined losing what they had, not to wallow in fear, but to sharpen gratitude. You imagine your job gone, your health shaken, your comfort disrupted. And then you look around and realize, I still have this moment, this breath, this chance. Detachment teaches you to hold everything with open hands, to love fully without clinging, to work diligently without desperation, to strive bravely without needing the world to obey your plans. And when things fall apart, as they sometimes will, you are not destroyed. You feel the disappointment, you acknowledge the loss, and you continue. Because you were never promised control, only choice. You choose to stay steady. You choose to show up. You choose to let go of what is not yours and embrace what is. Your effort, your attitude, your integrity. This is the Stoic path. Let others chase outcomes. You chase virtue. Let others react. You respond. Let others rise and fall with circumstance. You remain firm. In a world obsessed with winning, you become something rarer. A person who can lose and still be whole. Who can succeed and still be humble. Who can try and let go. That is the power of detachment, and that is the mark of a Stoic.